Hey horror fans, welcome back to Room 237, coming at you with yet another Giallo review. And of course, today I'm reviewing one of the most revered Giallo films, a lot of people's favorite Argento film, Deep Red, 1975. First one he did after his Three Animals trilogy, so I guess this would make it his fourth movie. A lot of people consider this Argento's masterpiece. One of the greatest Giallos ever made. I can definitely see why. I really enjoyed this movie. First time I saw this, which probably would have been about 7 years ago, I thought it was too close plot-wise to Bird with the Crystal Plumage, a movie that I really enjoy and have already reviewed. But then going over these again, rewatching them, Deep Red, there's a lot more to it than that. I mean, there's stellar camera work. The blood and gore, well, I don't really know if I could say gore, I guess. The blood effects and kills are much more gruesome in this. There's a lot more humor and chemistry amongst the characters. Get a much more enjoyable cast, I think. And just a story, the story is very close to Crystal Plumage. You know, a guy witnesses, in Crystal Plumage it was an attack. This is a brutal murder. And he recognizes a clue that pretty much drives him to obsession of solving the case. Whereas Bird with the Crystal Plumage was a guy was sort of thrust into helping out, couldn't remember anything, and obsessed with solving it. But this is also the first movie that Goblin did the score for. Well, the score was done by Giorgio Gasolini, probably pronounced that wrong. But then Goblin came in and put some of their synth stuff over it. Argento liked it so much, and it worked out so well that they did Suspiria, Tenebrae, Phenomena, and Opera. And there was a movie that came out fairly recently, I can't remember the name of it, but it was made by a couple Italian Giallo fans. And they cited Deep Red as their main inspiration. I wish I could remember the name of the film. I just saw a video on it recently. But anyway. So Deep Red. The film opens up with a great score. And then it abruptly cuts to this scene of like a very proper sort of house. At Christmas time, you know, like floral wall paintings and like sort of fancy chair and table, a lamp with great lighting around the lamp too. I always found rooms like that creepy. It kind of reminded me of like the room Alex gets locked in at the end of Clockwork Orange. If you ever see a room like that, you'll know what I mean. I always just find rooms like that to be kind of creepy. And we see silhouette figures struggling. One of them has a knife. One of them gets stabbed, and we see children's feet walk into frame. It's a ground shot, and that is sort of sets up who the killer is. And then we see our lead, who's a jazz teacher, a pianist named Marcus Daly, played by David Hemmings, who I think did a great job. He plays a Brit who lives in Italy, and he has a lot of funny lines, and he kind of reminded me of like a young a Michael Caine. Like, I don't know why, it just did, probably because of the accent. But so we see him with his jazz students, but then we cut to this psychic, this telepath, a German woman named Helga Ullman, And it's sort of like a John Edward kind of thing. She tells the audience, like, oh, your name is this, you're from wherever. And then she has like this attack, and she's just like, you will kill again. You've killed before. And then that night she's brutally murdered. And Marcus sees it. Because he lives in the same apartment building. He sees his drunk friend Carlo out in the street on his way home, and he looks up at his building and he sees this woman who, she gets stabbed a bunch of times with a cleaver, great blood effects, and then her head gets pushed through the window and down on the broken glass. And when the glass goes in through the throat, they did a pretty good job with the sound of the glass breaking and puncturing of the flesh. The sound was really great too. So then he goes up there, gets her off the glass, and then the cops are called. And sort of like Bird with Crystal Plumage, they take all his information and everything. Then he realizes that there was a painting that was missing. And that painting is sort of the catalyst that brings the whole thing. Or brings us through the whole thing. Because that's the one clue. It's just like, what was so important about that painting? And every time he sort of has an update about what's going on, he goes and tells his friend Carlo, who you find out, he's a homosexual, closeted, but he's dating someone, raging alcoholic. And so he keeps telling him new things he finds and asks for his opinion. He then starts working with this photographer, journalist, reporter named Gianna Brezzi, played by Daria Nicolodi. Probably pronounced that wrong too. She was actually in Tenebrae and Phenomena. I think she was the mother of the killer in Phenomena. And David Hemmings and, I'm just not going to say their real names. I'm going to say their character names because I'll mispronounce them. Gianna and Marcus, they have pretty good chemistry. There's a lot of humor in it, especially in the beginning. Like, she has this piece of shit car. Like he gets in, they're going down the road, and his seat goes down, and the visor keeps falling, the doors get fucked up. There's just a lot of humor between those two. I thought they had great chemistry. And just every time he gets closer to, every person that gets killed seems to have more importance to the plot than in, say, Bird with the Crystal Plumage, whereas that was more so random. That was more so the killer killing women. This, it's like, what was the name of that painting? I just got done watching it too. On nights when I work, when I work during the day and I come home and watch Giallos, for some reason I have to watch those on my day off. Trying to find the... Okay. So eventually... because of course it's an Argento film, so whenever there's scenes with the killer, you get the child la 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 la, or however it goes, that sort of Rosemary's Baby kind of chanting. And he remembers there was an old storybook called House of the Screaming Child, written by a woman named Amanda Rigetti. Yeah, I'm looking some stuff up because I forgot names and stuff. But when Marcus tries to find her, we see her death. I'm just going to say spoilers right now, because even though this is regarded as one of the biggest Giallos and many people consider to be Argento's finest film, I'm I'm pretty sure most people who are into Italian films have seen this already. But if not, I don't want to spoil this. So go see Deep Red. I'm sure by now there's like an Arrow Blu-ray or something, or a better version than this. Even though this is complete and uncut. Excuse me, but yeah, definitely go see Deep Red. It is a very well done Giallo. It's a bit longer. It's 126 minutes, so it's just over 2 hours. His movies are usually lengthier. But yes, go see Deep Red. Spoilers from here on out. So yeah, and I really like the scenes, how they set up the like when the killer's gonna be there, because the killer always sneaks in and like when this woman gets killed, hangs baby dolls from the ceiling, and she gets drowned in her tub, but she writes a message in the steam for Marcus. And then there's this other guy who also I look up names because I'm terrible with remembering Italian names. And then as the story goes on, the more Marcus finds out and tells Carlo, the more he tells him to back off, leave town. Until at one point he holds a gun on him. And this is probably one of the more gruesome deaths, besides this other guy and the one at the very end, the killers, where he tries to jump over this fence. Carlo, Marco's friend, Carlo, Marcus's friend, excuse me. He jumps over this fence and his pant leg, I'm guessing, gets hung on this rebar that a truck is carrying. It's like a load of rebar. Starts dragging him down the street, and I mean, they come around a curve and hits his head on the curb. And then this car comes, and you just hear, like, his head is here, just squash. You see his brains and blood all over the tire. But then there's this other guy, I have to look his name up. It's another guy that worked with Helga Ullman. He's in his office, and this is probably my favorite shot of the film. Probably one of the more famous ones. The Goblin score kind of picks up. It's kind of poppy sounding. Then it gets dead silent. He's in his study. And there's this wide shot across the room. And then this door opens, and this mechanical doll is like running at him, sort of laughing, like kind of like Billy the Puppet from Saw, not Jigsaw. A lot of people like to call Jigsaw the puppet. The puppet's Billy. And it's sort of like this little boy puppet, and he's sort of doing this like weird mechanical run. And the guy just like hits it in the head and stops it. But then he has a gruesome death. His head goes against the mantelpiece and the table, and we see corners go into his mouth, bust his teeth. And then he gets stabbed with a knife. So all this is going on, and just to wrap this up. Well, first, before I say who the killer is, for those who have already seen it, just other things I like about the film. There's a lot of shots I like. Like when we first see the sidekick in the beginning, there's this beautiful wide shot. We go through the door or the curtain. It's just this huge wide shot of this theater. Very atmospheric. Thick red carpets, and just, Argento always has great cinematography with like colors. But this movie seemed bigger and like wider, more atmospheric. There's also a scene where Marcus goes to the house that either inspired the story, The House with the Screaming Child, like what the house that story's about, or something like that. And he's walking through the house, and there's this great shot of you see him walking through the dark house. Then there's these great wide open shots where he walks by huge stained glass windows. Just stark contrast. I think that was done very well. There's a few other scenes I wanted to mention, but now I can't remember them. But anyway, so yeah, my other favorite shot is when you finally find out who the killer is, because Carlo goes down as the killer. But then Marcus is confronted by Carlo's mother. And then, of course, we get the flashback to the beginning of the Christmas time, where she stabbed her husband because he was going to commit her to a psychiatric hospital because she's insane. And the child's feet that walks into frame in the first shot in front of the bloody knife, I thought it was a girl, because it's like high socks and buckle shoes. I guess way back then boys used to wear those too, because he's got like schoolboy shorts and jacket and tie. I guess boys used to wear buckle shoes too. But he, there's that great shot where he picks the knife up, and I think it's just, I like the lighting in that scene. I really like the sort of pink or light blue, sort of very weird wallpaper behind him. But then, of course, she has a great death too, which again, hopefully they stopped watching, ones who haven't seen it yet. She attacks Marcus, and he kicks her towards the elevator. She has this long necklace that gets stuck in the elevator bars, and it keeps strangling her until she's cleanly decapitated. But what's great about it is it like decapitates her, then there's a shot of her mouth with like her like foaming or like spitting up what's in her mouth. And then it goes back to her throat, cutting the rest off. Well done. Lots of blood. And then there's just this long shot of the elevator with the bloody necklace, either going up or down. And then the last shot is just a pool of deep red blood with Marx's reflection in it. So yeah, definitely a great, solid Giallo. I don't know what I was thinking first time I watched this years ago. I think I just really liked Crystal Plumage so much, and I just thought that the plot was very similar, which it is. But watching it the second time around, now years later, I see it maybe even as an improvement. Like, even if the story's very similar, his directorial work has much improved since Crystal Plumage. And, there's great cinematography, great stuff with colors and contrast of light. Like, there's a part where they're in a library and he's looking at these drawings, and the reporter goes to use the phone. I love this shot. It's all black around her, but there's like a little strip of stained glass. It almost looks dreamlike. And I really love the way that looks. So yeah, definitely Argento was really coming into his own style by the time he did this. The only other film I have between Crystal Plumage and this is Cat o' Nine Tails, which I'll get to eventually. I've not been able to get Four Flies on Grey Velvet, which sucks. I would like to get that someday. But so far, yeah, this is definitely a solid-ass Giallo. Great death, great kills, But there's not much more to say than that. Just, yeah, one of the best Giallos ever made. Dario Argento's Deep Red. For Room 237, thank you.